All right, so hello, I'm Erik Hencier, a product manager here at Great Expectations. And over the last month, our team's been busy shipping lovable features. And the first one is more around covering the use case of missingness, checking for missingness in your data via our missingness data assistant, which we'll share the documentation link in the chat. We encourage you to check it out and see if it meets your needs. So it's another programmatic way to generate tests by introspecting multiple batches of data and proposing or recommending expectations based on the metrics that it observes. So you get that interactive plotly to look back in time and see the thresholds and the different proposed expectations plotted out against your set of data. So would love everybody to try it out and give us a call out on the Slack community channel. Outside of that, we've been improving the experience for GX Cloud around managing expectations in the UI. So not creating them through JSON or config or via the Python interface, but really trying to visualize how the data is performed over time and the ability to add the common expectations via the UI. We're also improving the charting. So after each run of your test, Cloud stores that metadata. So we're able to build visualizations to look at data performing over time, which might give you some more insight into managing the test sets themselves and for understanding the asset health. Coming up soon, we're building out a workflow to connect to data via the UI that is primarily focused on a Snowflake data warehouse, but we'll soon scale to other types of backends. But we totally understand that it's difficult to define the data that you want to work with GX, and we're hoping to make it a little bit easier for SQL data warehouses, introspecting those backends and adding tables as assets and continuing on your journey to validate them and actually put them under test. And lastly, we have some early design prototyping on understanding your data via the column descriptive metrics or the characteristics about it. So this will be like min, max, median, checking for nulls, null percentages, just trying to understand at a glance the type of data that you're working with that you want to put under test, and all that context goes into the whole management of the tests against that data set. So a lot of fun things to share, and please encourage, if you want to join our beta program, go on to greatexpectations.io/cloud and fill out a small survey. But that's it for me, Haebichan.
All right, let's move on to the GX FDS flowcharts. This is actually me. I won't take too long on this, but I think for those who have already been with GX for some time, you guys are familiar with the FDS, the Fluent Datasources. We've made this big iteration, this newest iteration of GX implementation called the Fluent Datasource around April 2023. Correct me, Aaron, if I'm wrong on that. But so we made this new move to this new implementation of GX. And I wanted to create some flowcharts to make sure that there's some actual visual representation to capture what does this all look like with the FDS. Like, what do we mean by FDS? How do the components all look like? How do they fit together to create this end-to-end implementation of Great Expectations? Now, it is actually quite simple. I'm not going to be really hounding on every single nuance of the FDS breakdown, but I do want to show you what the components look like to really show you guys how simple GX is to implement, right? There's really, I don't know, 4, 5-ish big main components that really come up to represent the total of the Great Expectations end-to-end implementation, right? So we have data source, which is just like, what's your data? Is it pandas, S3, BigQuery, and so on. And then we get to the assets, right? Which is, then we're just pulling that set of data, right? And then we use a batch request to further scope out the data. For instance, I want to look at a specific user ID. And from there, you can create the validator, which is a component for operating on this data, right? Or you can create an expectation suite where you just create a set of tests to run, or you can do that in the validator. And then you run that through the checkpoint. That's really it, right? But what I've done is that I've created this flowchart for us to use and for us to see. And really, it just shows you what does this look like really from the coding perspective, right? Like if you need to, if you're coming in with the fresh script and saying, look, I want to know what this FDS implementation looks like from a coding perspective, plus the visual perspective, how can I see that, right? And this is what this is for. And hopefully all of us who are here are using the FDS rather than the previous iterations, because we're no longer supporting the previous version of Great Expectations. Excuse me, we'll have this link ready. I think we're going to put it in the GX community support right at the top over here. And this is something that Molly's thinking about. So we'll get back to you in terms of where exactly we're going to be pushing or putting the location of this link. But for those who I've interacted with from the Slack channel, I have tried to at least share with you guys this doc. It's actually public, so I can also share it with you guys in the chat. So that's really what it looks like from a very high level FDS implementation, right? Very, very simple, a few components necessary to implement Great Expectations. But for those who are more of a power users who really want to get the most out of Great Expectations, there are advanced use cases, right? And here, what we wanted to say is, look, it is really you guys. What we're doing is we're providing the playground really for you guys to mess around with Great Expectations, and we'll offer our best approach, right? And that's what this advanced use case flowchart really is. So here is this other the link to this other flowchart, and it really gets to the more of an advanced use case implementation of it. And I know it looks, there's a lot of spider webs that's happening, right? But taking a step back, what is this for, right? Here, when it comes to the simple flowchart, it is more of a very basic scenario. What happens when you have one data source, one asset, one batch request, and so on, right? Just one. But when it comes to the more advanced implementation of Great Expectations from a production use case, you can have, for instance, a data source with multiple tables, right? Like one might be a user table, one might be a transactions table, one might be another table, right? And you have to like merge all of them together. How do we do that? How do we do that most efficiently? How do we do that the most in the more of a GX way, right? And that is what this advanced use case flowchart is here to do, to assist you guys. So when you guys come and say, look, I want to use Great Expectations with a lot of different moving pieces, what's the best way to implement this? This is the flowchart that demonstrates, okay, here are some of the options, and here's the best way to implement them, right? Are we good on that? Sounds good? Okay. Hope I'm seeing some thumbs up. I can't see you guys' faces, unfortunately. But yeah, I hope I'm seeing some thumbs up. Okay, so that's it for me. I'll be sharing the link to these flowcharts on the chat here, but we'll also be sharing it, I believe, in the GX community support at the top. But that's something that we'll discuss with Molly and come back to you guys on. So thank you very much for that.